people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A social media exchange between a Twitter user that goes by the name Ray Jackson and Gervonta Davis ahead of his upcoming fight with Hector Garcia. Ray Jackson said Tank Davis has 2 fights lined up next year, and the quote-unquote boss, Floyd, hasn't mentioned anything about it. To which Gervonta Davis himself responded, because the love was gone when I knocked Rolly out. Crazy thing is, I was over at my mom's house the other night. She told me how Leonard was telling people how Rolly was going to knock me out, and my uncles that started me in boxing overheard him. Go look at the fight and watch my mom. By the time that this video is uploaded, Gervonta Davis's tweets may have already been deleted, already been erased. It's commonplace with him. The silver lining is that most people in the boxing world have become privy to this and already taken their screenshots, collected evidence, as it were, including boxing scribe Michael Benson. So even if Gervonta Davis does end up deleting these tweets, we've got timestamps. Very revealing insights into the fractured relationship between Gervonta and what could very well be his former promoter, Floyd Mayweather, and Leonard Ellerbe. We've known that there was internal conflict between Gervonta Davis and his handlers for years now. We've known for some time that it's rough seas over there. You haven't heard much from Leonard or anything from Floyd in reference to the monumental announcement that Gervonta Davis may very well be fighting Ryan Garcia in April of next year. They're pretty tight-lipped about it. Interesting insights into Gervonta Davis's next fight is that Leonard Ellerbe is not registered as the promoter of that event. Ahead of the Rolly Romero fight, the story was that was the final fight of his existing contract with Mayweather Promotions. That's what Gervonta Davis said. Now look, Leonard's name is not registered as the promoter of that show. That show's set to go down early next year, ahead of what's supposed to be the Ryan Garcia fight, where before, in the Rolly Romero fight and the Isaac Cruz fight, it's not there now. Has Gervonta Davis in fact parted ways with Floyd Mayweather and Leonard Ellerbe, Mayweather Promotions, and the Money Team? If he has... Well, I told you he wouldn't go far. Just because he's not with Floyd Mayweather doesn't mean he's going to give his decorum a complete overhaul. He does still appear to be boxing on the Showtime platform in one form or another. He still is affiliated with the PBC. Tom Brown, he promotes quite a few PBC shows. He's just as much a PBC guy as Leonard. Just as much a PBC guy as Samson Lukowicz, just as much a PBC guy. TGB Promotions is just another way of saying PBC Promotions. Does this mean that Gervonta Davis is no longer promoted by Floyd Mayweather and Leonard Ellerbe? Kind of reminds you of Tiki Barber, doesn't it? Tiki Barber retired from the NFL way back when in 2006. Right. Only so that in 2007, the New York Giants, we used to play for, could win the fucking Super Bowl. In this situation, the Ryan Garcia fight would be Gervonta Davis's Super Bowl, and the Tiki Barber in the story, well, that would have to be Leonard Ellerbe. In some ways, he's out of the picture, the big picture, the same way that Tiki was out of the big picture. You've promoted this guy for all this time, all this effort, all this manpower, all these arguments on social media and all these sound bites, all these interviews. You've gotten him to this point. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We don't know for sure that Leonard's not involved. What we do know is that he's not registered as the promoter of this show. What we do know is that Gervonta Davis, by way of his own social media, is saying they were banking on Rolly Romero to knock out Gervonta Davis, both he and Floyd Mayweather. That's what he says. Those are his words. And if that's what they were banking on... Remember what Gervonta Davis said all those weeks ago, that was the final fight of his existing contract. So was it their intention to put Gervonta Davis in a fight, the the final fight of his existing contract? Was it their intention to put him in a fight they felt he would lose?
In order to spite him.
Why would they want to spite him? Why would they want him to lose?
Because they knew he wasn't going to re-sign with them. They knew that beyond that fight, he was going to go his own way.
And if he has in fact parted ways with Mayweather Promotions, he really didn't go far, did he? He's still on the Showtime platform. He still seems to be under that PBC umbrella. He's just not their fighter anymore.
We don't know that.
On the premise that he has parted ways with Mayweather Promotions, where does Leonard Ellerbe go from here? Who keeps the promotional banner afloat? Rolly Romero?
I mean, seriously, if Gervonta Davis ain't their fighter anymore, what the fuck is Leonard gonna do?
At the risk that we're getting ahead of ourselves here, you have to read what Gervonta Davis says and just take it at face value. If Leonard was banking on Rolly Romero to knock out Gervonta Davis,
Leonard wasn't among all those people that were celebrating last week's news.
Joe Markowski was very happy, and Oscar De La Hoya, and Stefan Espinoza, he put in his 2 cents, but you didn't see Leonard.
He's not registered as the Hector Garcia Fights promoter.
A cruel twist of fate. If on the eve of Gervonta Davis's biggest fight, the biggest fight of his career, Leonard Ellerbe is no longer in the picture.
That's fucked up.
And if they thought that Rolly Romero was going to knock out Gervonta, doesn't that then mean that they were setting him up?
Setting him up for an immediate rematch, perhaps on the premise that they felt he'd get knocked out.
In order to stay in the Gervonta Davis business.
Knowing that he wasn't going to re-sign with them, that he would perhaps go his own way, even if it wasn't very far, he wouldn't be their fighter anymore.
Could have been a way to get another show out of him.
Interesting.
Broadcast information in association with the proposed Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight, per tweet from Lance Pugmire, reads, industry source tells me this about the Showtime broadcast of Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. DAZN is not involved in production or distribution of the pay-per-view. DAZN will have access to the Showtime telecast to sell on DAZN, just like Sony PlayStation and other digital platforms.
Isn't that the distribution of the pay-per-view?
It sounds like it. If the telecast, if the signal is available for purchase on both the Showtime platform and the DAZN platform, that would then mean that DAZN is helping to distribute the show.
The question is, will DAZN be distributing the pay-per-view in America? Or are the U.S. rights to the fight exclusive to Showtime in America and available via DAZN everywhere else?
There were some people out there, small circles, very small circles, that felt that DAZN should just send Ryan over. Just send him over.
You know, because Showtime's supposed to be the superior fucking platform. I mean, have you seen their ratings?
The misconception is that because Showtime has subscribers in the millions, more subscribers than the DAZN platform, the misconception is that all of those subscribers are boxing fans, when the vast majority of them aren't boxing fans. The vast majority of them don't tune into PBC shows, PBC cards, whereas DAZN's subscribers,
they are boxing fans. Many of them are sports fans because it's a streaming app for sports.
That's why people subscribe, whereas your average Showtime subscriber isn't subscribing to Showtime for sports. It's their story-based programming that seems to drive subscriptions for the platform.
They're supposed to have something like 33 million subscribers, but less than 1% of that 30 or 33 million, less than 1% of Showtime's subscriber base tunes into their boxing matches.
When's the last time a boxing match got 1 million views on Showtime? At least 1 million.
The Charlo versus Castano rematch came close.
It did.
Almost hit 1 million.
But almost doesn't count. The vast majority of their cards don't even do as well as that one did.
Showtime subscribers unsubscribing in droves, the average American cutting the cord.
The idea that Showtime is the superior platform for sports comes from an antiquated sentiment based on the network that they used to be, the powerhouse they used to be back in Mayweather's heyday. Needless to say, this ain't Mayweather's heyday.
You guys are living in the past, man.
It seems to me that the production of the show is coming from Showtime. They are still sharing the signal with DAZN.
Because if they weren't, then DAZN wouldn't be able to sell it on their platform to their subscribers.
According to this inside intel by way of Lance Pugmire of the LA Times, that seems to be the case. DAZN subscribers will be able to purchase the fight. The question is, which DAZN subscribers in which country?
I'm sure the answers will come in time.
In men's middleweight news, on the heels of his successful title defense against Denzel Bentley, reigning WBO champion Janibek Alimkhanuly says, "I'm not interested in Munguia. He is nobody. I need champions."
Well, unless he plans on fighting his countryman and idol Gennady Golovkin.
There are only 3 champions in today's middleweight division: Janibek Alimkhanuly, Gennady Golovkin, unified champion Gennady Golovkin, and WBC champion who's out on hiatus, Jermall Charlo. And I don't think Janibek plans on fighting Gennady, and he doesn't have access to Jermall, so...
If he's limiting his opponent options to champions, reigning world champions, he's going to come up short, very short in that department. To these comments, reigning WBC interim champion Carlos Adames said,
I'm a champion. Why are you not interested in me?
Well, it's probably because you're just an interim champion. You're a secondary champion, a secondary titleist with a secondary title. Better still, Janibek Alimkhanuly should be so lucky as to be able to get Carlos Adames in the ring.
He should be so lucky as to get a Munguia, an Adames, a Eubank, these guys that aren't actually full-fledged champions. He should be so lucky as to share the ring with one of them, though the truth is, the middleweight division is a shit show, and it was a shit show long before Janibek Alimkhanuly said what he said.
It's a shit show because politics have ruined this division. Carlos Adames seems to want to land a fight with Janibek, and I'm not sure if Carlos understands.
You think that I, as a boxing fan, am in any way, shape, or form against Janibek Alimkhanuly versus Carlos Adames? I'm not. I'm just not naive. I'm realistic. Unless Carlos Adames plans on crossing over to Top Rank and ESPN, this fight don't happen, because I don't think for a second Bob Arum is going to send Janibek over to Showtime.
Bob Arum, who stated they're willing to offer up a handsome purse for any prominent middleweight to take on their pony in that middleweight show, Janibek Alimkhanuly. A golden opportunity for Carlos, who can't seem to land that Jermall Charlo fight.
In spite of being the WBC's reigning interim champion, in spite of being on the same side of the street as Jermall, fighting under the same banner, on the same platforms, he can't get that guy in the ring. So why not let him cross the street over to Top Rank and ESPN? You guys ain't got him doing anything worthwhile.
You know, they might shelf this guy for a couple of months, maybe even a year. That's how they do things over there at the PBC.
He's coming off a stellar showing against Juan Montiel, who gave Jermall Charlo some problems. He couldn't give Carlos any.
Janibek just looked less than spectacular against Denzel Bentley, so why not strike while the iron is hot?
The truth is, I don't expect this fight to materialize in spite of Carlos Adames's expressed interests, no more than I expected Fulton versus Inouye to materialize.
The truth is, even if Carlos does want that fight, it's not up to him.
Read this book before, where a PBC fighter expresses interest in some other fighter that's on some other platform fighting under some other banner, and nothing happens except an exchange of words by way of social media.
I wouldn't fault Carlos Adames for calling out a reigning champion in his division, but by now we all know the political boundary lines in boxing would prevent such a fight from happening. So it's an exercise in futility.
Damn waste of time is what he is, and what he should do is apply more pressure on Jermall Charlo, his PBC stablemate, to get in the goddamn ring. And finally, in my previous video, we talked about Anthony Yarde's knockout win over Kloikov and how the Artur Beterbiev title fight has been officially announced.
I still like Beterbiev to win the fight. I feel like Anthony, if he has anything, he's got a puncher's chance.
Doesn't have the amateur background that Artur Beterbiev has. He certainly hasn't faced the same level of competition as Artur as a professional, but Anthony Yarde, he is younger, not as injury prone, and he can punch.
Both men have only seen action once this calendar year.
I still favor Artur to win the fight, but in the unlikely event that Anthony pulls the upset, what are the implications of those alphabet titles being transferred from Artur over to Anthony? That certainly would complicate things in the undisputed title picture. You have to really put your thinking cap on for this one. Artur Beterbiev is an aging fighter, an aging champion who's in his late 30s. For Top Rank, you know,
I mean, I think the guy's great. He's a pleasure to watch, but they're not going to turn this guy into a big ticket seller. They're just not.
And at what, 37, going on 38 years old? How many good years in the sport does he have left? If Artur beats Anthony, doesn't do a whole lot for him, whereas if Anthony beats Artur, well, that's a different kettle of fish. This is a younger guy, a UK-based fighter. The UK boxing market is comparatively a healthier market than the American market. Top Rank is based out of America. They promote Artur Beterbiev.
But Artur Beterbiev ain't some big draw in America.
He wins this fight. What the hell else are they going to do for this guy? Short of the undisputed title fight with Dmitry Bivol, what's left for him? Whereas if Anthony wins the fight, if he pulls the upset,
If he becomes this division's unified lineal champion, here you have a younger guy with more good years left in the sport that you can now market as a champion to the UK audience, the UK market, which comparatively is a healthier market than the American one, at least for boxing.
I'm just going to come right out and say it. If Anthony upsets the apple cart for an aging Artur Beterbiev, I don't think Frank Warren is going to want to put him in there with Dmitry Bivol. Not on the heels of Dmitry having a big year, as big a year as this has been for him, beating Canelo Alvarez and thoroughly outclassing the very statuesque Zurdo Ramirez.
I don't think Frank is going to want to make that fight.
If Artur wins, it's different. It's different because this is an aging fighter, an aging champion with limited options. He ain't got that much time left anyway, and you're not going to turn this guy into a big draw in America. You'd sooner turn Anthony Yarde into some kind of a draw in the United Kingdom.
Because of that, I don't think Frank is going to be too keen on making a fight between Anthony and Dmitry. Dmitry would jeopardize...
Yeah, no. He let Anthony Yarde travel to Chelyabinsk, Russia, to take on Sergey Kovalev. And we all know what happened. You could argue that Anthony's really been on easy street since then. He put him in there with Lyndon Arthur. Lyndon Arthur upset the apple cart for Anthony, and then Anthony avenged the loss. But Anthony's quality of competition overall hasn't been very ambitious.
Frank Warren seldom ever puts this guy in harm's way. An offer was made to Anthony earlier this year for a Joshua Buatsi fight, and that offer was rejected. So you think he's going to stick him in there with Dmitry Bivol? If he wins the fight, that on paper he's not even supposed to win.
Knowing that Anthony would be in possession of most of the alphabet titles in this division, save one.
Dmitry's.
Anthony Yarde winning this fight would complicate things in a way that Artur winning this fight wouldn't.
I think Frank would try to keep Anthony away from Dmitry.
Though there still is the matter of Callum Smith that would need to be reconciled, as Callum Smith is the mandatory challenger to what would be Anthony's green belt.
Frank can keep Anthony out of a Dmitry Bivol fight, but he can't circumvent Callum with anything other than a unification match.
We all know that Callum Smith is with Matchroom. A complicated situation indeed, in the unlikely event that Anthony Yarde pulls the upset.
Things to think about.